So, Falcon and the Winter Soldier just ended, and I don't think it was half bad. As a whole, I think the show has its highs and its lows, but at the end of the day, I think the show accomplishes most of what it tries to do. I should go on record saying that this was my most anticipated Marvel DisneyPlus show that got announced, and if I'm being honest, despite the cool things this show does, I feel like my expectations got the better of me here, because this show is kind of underwhelming in some aspects. Basically, this show is exactly what you expect it to be. Between this show and WandaVision, I think I enjoyed WandaVision more. However, these first two MCU shows are very, very different. WandaVision adds the extra element of emulating American sitcoms from previous decades, while also being a superhero show, while Falcon and the Winter Soldier falls more in line with the Captain America trilogy, and it has much more of a straightforward narrative. That's not to say that this show is bad, but if you don't like the Captain America movies, you probably won't enjoy this show as much. So like I said a bit ago, this show is basically exactly what you expect. It's a straightforward MCU story about Falcon taking up the Captain America mantle and setting up his new status moving forward in the MCU. Now, before I keep going, I'm going to go ahead and put a spoiler warning right now, so if you haven't watched the show yet, there's your warning, because a lot of the stuff I'm going to be talking about from here on out is pretty spoiler heavy. I said it before in my WandaVision video, but I really like how these Disney Plus shows are giving the side Avengers the spotlight for once. WandaVision made Wanda and Vision some of the most developed characters in the MCU, and I think Falcon and the Winter Soldier did the same thing for both Sam and Bucky. Which leads me to my first point. The number one thing I like about this show is the relationship between Sam and Bucky. So far in the MCU, their relationship has always been kind of awkward because the only thing that they have in common is their mutual best buddy Steve, but in this show, they have such a good dynamic that forms into a true friendship once the show ends. They both also have really compelling reasons for why the shield means so much to both of them. Sam sees the shield as a symbol that the world looks up to, and he feels like he isn't worthy of the mantle of Captain America. He also learns that the shield doesn't always represent good things for certain people, and Sam has to figure out how to embody that spectrum towards the idea of Captain America. Bucky, on the other hand, sees that shield as the only thing he has left from Steve and his old life before becoming the Winter Soldier. He feels really betrayed that Sam decided not to obey Steve's final wishes, and that's highlighted in the therapy scene where Bucky has his confidence shaken when he says that if Steve was wrong about Sam, then he was definitely wrong about Bucky. Their relationship and their beliefs in this show are so compelling because neither one of them are wrong, and I think it's awesome towards the end of the show that they both come to a mutual understanding about why they feel the way they do when it comes to the responsibility of being Captain America. I really like Sam's subplot with Isaiah Bradley and the concept of race. I think it gives Sam the extra push he needs to finally take up the Captain America mantle. I really like his monologue at the end when he says that he knows that some people won't accept a black man as Captain America, but he doesn't care because it's his job to help people and inspire humanity as Captain America. Bucky, on the other hand, is kind of underutilized, and he really doesn't get as much screen time compared to Sam. I get that this show is more about Sam than it is Bucky, but considering that Bucky is supposed to be the other main character of the show, I really thought we should have seen more of him because he doesn't really get a whole lot to do. I will say though that some of the scenes we get with Bucky are really good, like the therapy scene with Sam and the scene where Bucky finally breaks free of the Winter Soldier programming. The other great thing in this show is John Walker. I'll talk about this more in a bit, but basically every other side character in the show is kind of boring, but John Walker is the exception. His character isn't exactly a villain because he wants to be a hero. He wants to be Captain America, but he goes about it in the wrong way. I also like how this show makes us feel like we're not supposed to like him at all. We're supposed to hate him right off the bat, because we're supposed to feel like he stole the Captain America mantle. I think he serves as a great foil to Steve Rogers because he's basically Steve's opposite. I really like seeing how worse he got as the show went on, and I think his complete 180 in the finale from being a villain to becoming kind of a good guy is a little jarring, because I definitely think he's way better when he's the villain. The biggest problem in the show for me is that this show tries to cram a lot of stuff into it, but there just isn't enough time to explore everything in depth. This show tries to juggle more characterization for Sam and Bucky, Baron Zemo, US Agent, the Flag Smashers, Isaiah Bradley, and the Power Broker all into 6 episodes, and it doesn't succeed with exploring all of that. And some of these things I just wish they didn't include altogether. I cut it for my WandaVision video, but when that show was airing, I kept thinking to myself that WandaVision probably could have cut an episode or two and the show would still be fine. I feel the exact opposite with this show, because I think that the show as a whole would have really benefited from an extra episode or two. Now, I know a lot of people are simping over Zemo, and to be fair, I agree with some of the newfound love for the character. My problem with him in this show is that he is very underutilized. I really like Zemo's dynamic with Sam and Bucky, and it adds an entertaining dynamic to the show. I think Zemo is way better here than he was in Civil War, but like I said, I still think he's sort of underutilized. His role in the story is to be Sam and Bucky's sugar daddy and help them track down who's making the new super soldier serum, and that's basically it. I will say, however, I like how his motivations are consistent from what we've seen before. He hates superheroes and thinks that they shouldn't exist, and that's highlighted in the scene when he starts destroying what's left of the new super soldier serum. I really appreciate that they didn't go the stereotypical route and make Zemo take the serum himself, because I think that would have completely ruined his character. Aside from that, I definitely thought he was going to have more of a presence in the show. If they decided to keep the US agent plotline the same, but had Zemo as the main villain, I think that this show would have been so much better, because unfortunately, the actual main villains of this show are really bad. Carly Morgenthau and the Flag Smashers might be some of the most underwhelming villains in the MCU. I personally just find these characters so boring. There are some cool ideas put forward with Carly wanting to help the people who didn't vanish during the blip, since the people that reappeared got preferential treatment. The problem with Carly is the show keeps trying to push the idea that she's a good person doing bad things, but if she's fine using excessive violence and destruction and killing innocent people just to send the message of uniting people, I think that makes her a bad person without question, and her motives are kind of confusing to follow. She whines constantly about how the world was better when half of humanity was gone, but we've already seen in Endgame that that wasn't the case. I think we should have gotten scenes of Carly during the blip, because that way her motivations would have been so much more clearer. I just don't really understand why they decided to throw in more villains, because this show already has both Baron Zemo and US Agent. I genuinely think if the Flag Smashers were removed from the show altogether, and with some minimal changes here and there, I think the show would have been so much better. Ultimately, I thought the Sharon Carter power broker subplot was kind of pointless, and the reveal of her as the power broker isn't exactly a big twist. I kind of think she didn't really need to be in the show at all, but I get that they brought back a lot of the characters from the Captain America trilogy, so they just kind of threw her in as well. I don't know where she's going to be popping up next, and if I'm being honest, I just don't really care. So, to wrap things up, I think Falcon and the Winter Soldier is a nice addition to the MCU. It's not trying to tie into a new overarching plot for future movies and shows, it just tells a grounded, straightforward story featuring characters that haven't really gotten the chance to be the main focus yet. I really like Sam Wilson as Captain America, and I can't wait to see what they do with him moving forward. I'm really glad that we got some good stuff with Bucky, and I hope we get more of him in the future as well. I really love John Walker, and I'm interested to see what they do with him as US Agent moving forward. And I think Julia Louis-Dreyfus's inclusion was really cool as Madam Hydra, and I'm curious to see if she's working with General Ross to assemble the Thunderbolts. Her character was supposed to appear in the Black Widow movie first along with General Ross, so I'm pretty confident that that's the case. My guess for that is that we'll probably be seeing Taskmaster, US Agent Zemo, and potentially some of the other villains from previous movies joining the team, so if that's the case, I am definitely looking forward to that. So with all of that out of the way, I think the show accomplished exactly what it needed to, and I'm very excited to see what's next.